All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining today. I am very excited for today's conversation. I want to go deep on a certain topic. This the idea of a learning culture. And what does that mean? And the reason I'm doing this as a recruiter is a couple things. Number one is if you're joining an organization and it's not a learning culture, that can create problems and create friction. And so, how do you identify that before you join? What does it look like? And then once you are in an organization, sometimes it's your job to create a learning culture, and your ability or inability to do that can determine your success. And so I want to go deep on that topic today. And for this, I brought in one of the best people who's really known for creating learning cultures, Nate Vogel. Maybe give a couple minutes of like, who are you and how you got to where you are?
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me. So first of all, live in Seattle, was a sales leader for 18 years, surely understood the value of developing teams and making sure that you're building out competencies. And then I got into tech, joined Tableau 2012 to help build out that enablement team. So that was early on, by the way, Tableau pre-IPO and small, but we started with a few enablement managers, and over 9 years built that up to about 80 or so enablement professionals. And then 2 of those 9 years was with Salesforce enablement because we got acquired. Then I went over to Gong for a few years. Hopefully, most people know about Gong, but really cool company and surely a great platform to measure enablement effectiveness. And over the last year, joined Databricks, which I'm a huge fan of their platform and what they're trying to do to solve the world's greatest problems using data and AI. So that's me.
I love it. And let's dive into the heart of the topic. So, how do you define learning culture? Like, what does that look like to you? What does it mean?
Well, first of all, I think you got to model it. And so one of the things I try to do and my leaders over time is to make sure that you keep learning. Great leaders are great readers. You can see some of my favorite books here on the back. By the way, not just books, podcasts, webinars, and so on. So I think you have to model that, but being able to really focus on that. Maybe a context too. My mom's a teacher, grew up, kind of being in that background, so understanding and kind of seeing the power of influence and education. So that's, first of all, just modeling it and understanding the power of getting enabled or understanding a competency or a topic and being able to excel in that. Surely learned a lot of mistakes, especially as a sales leader over 18 years. And so one of the things that was inspiring to me is potentially sharing those with leaders, especially new leaders, so they don't have to make some of the same mistakes that I made. And very similar in enablement, where there are certain things that I kind of look back on and say, I wish I would have, and things I surely failed at or our team didn't excel at. And then, that's one of the things I'm inspired about, and the role that I'm here today is just to like, okay, how do I kind of get out and share some of the things that I've made some mistakes on? That's one. So big topic there. And then my other comment would be, if you can define competencies with either executives or, at least in the tech space, we're spending a lot of time with, our CROs or our, senior leaders, and defining how we can help a sales team, which is the world that I live in, but you can surely apply that to other parts of the business. I'm sure a CMO,
Sure.
chief marketing officer, could do the same. Defining what competencies. I'm a big fan of saying, okay, what competencies? And when you use the word competency, especially in the learning culture, then you can start defining, well, what do I mean by that? So if I look back on my days at Tableau, and I was very blessed to work with some great leaders there. Kelly Wright was one of them, who was our executive vice president there for a long time. She ended up retiring, and Adam Slipsky came over from Amazon and started working closely with him. They hired a very, very good leader and dear friend. Thankfully, all three of them, I could say that. Dan Miller, and he was our EVP, especially during that Salesforce acquisition. We would say, okay, what competencies are you looking for? So, in other words, for an account executive, what are the top 2 or 3 things that you think we need to develop in more depth? And so you got very specific. It could be on account planning, or it could be on discovery, or it could be on how do we have executive alignment, or how do we have a competitive differentiator conversation. So we get really specific, and then once we define that, then we would actually go build out a learning journey And thankful a lot of the people that I worked with on my enablement team had expertise in instructional design, and so I get no credit for this, but being able to build out a true learning path and then 6 months later measure those, and you can really see over time a really big impact on learning.
And I want to dive for a moment and just get specific. So observing behaviors. So as you're looking at an organization, or even if you're already in an organization, help me distinguish behaviors or observations of a learning culture versus maybe one who's not. How can you tell the difference?
Yeah, well, I will, and I give Salesforce a lot of credit to this. When we got acquired, that was, I think, you look back on their trailblazer community, and if you read some of the early books by Benioff, or the early lessons from him building out a company, I mean, that was designed to build out and have this great learning platform that was not only internal, but it was obviously big for customers. So I think defining what that looks like at the executive level, and now. And surely at Databricks, for sure, you see it. You see it from the executives. You see it on all hands. You see that there's new products that we're either introducing to the market, or there's acquisitions, or there's part of the space. I'm in the data and AI space, and there's so much to learn. And then if you add on top of topics like generative AI, where it's changing, weekly, every few weeks, where a new large language model is introduced or a new topic is introduced. So like now learning is a must. Learning is mission critical. I think executives understand that. I think companies, at a high level understand that. And to really, in my opinion, enhance, a workforce, it has to be modeled at the top. And thankfully, I've been blessed to be at so many great companies. Databricks surely's doing that amazingly. Saw that obviously at Gong, Tableau, Salesforce, and so these are marquee brands that I think now most people know those names. And part of it has to do because I think they have such a strong learning culture.
And I want to take it to a micro level for a second here, because I
Sure.
make sure this is clear for people. So can you compare and contrast an AE in, you can say Tableau or Gong or
Sure.
whatever learning culture you want to talk about, versus maybe one where it's not? How do they differ in how much they consume, what they willingly consume things like? Can you compare and contrast those two different people?
Well, I think, I mean, timing is interesting, and tools and technology is also helping us really assess today versus, again, I'll go back to, oh my gosh, 2012. So, 12, 13 years ago, when I got into the enablement space in tech, a lot of the tools and technology and most of the data lived in Salesforce. And so the reporting and the analytics, that's why Tableau, was something that I think came around, because you can actually not just have analysts using a tool, but you can, I think the concept they had and the mission they had was help people see and understand data, that we not only want an analyst to understand data, but everyone to understand data. And so you could start seeing the trends of looking at analytics. We'll talk to your micro example of AEs, where you could see, okay, in some of the metrics, we need to increase our, discovery percentage, or it could be, we got to increase our competitive intelligence, or we got to do a better job of messaging our product in a better way. Now, a lot of times that was mostly shadowing, well before COVID, obviously. So you typically, managers would go shadow reps, or like when I was in enablement, I would go work with reps and see when customers brought up a topic, or you could actually articulate, the strengths of how our enablement was doing. And then over time, and this is where the marketplace, that's why I actually joined Gong, because I thought it would be really exciting. For 2.5 years, I ran enablement there. But part of my job, in addition to running global sales and partner enablement, was I was getting in front of customers and being able to show kind of Gong on Gong, where I was able to show measurement frameworks and be able to show like, okay, we rolled out enablement initiative. Typically, you would, after the enablement is done, that was it. You would then kind of wait and see if it was adopted. But with Gong, and there's other technologies now that do this too, but still think Gong is one of the leading platforms, is that you can see, with call recording or conversation intelligence, you could see the adoption, and you can see, okay, wait a minute, we trained the reps to say this on this new feature or this new messaging, and then you could see the adoption, and then you can actually measure win rates or churn rates and so on. That for me was fascinating, and so that was part of the really fun part of my role was, and I was got a lot more passionate about that metric. So I think AE today versus an AE 12 years ago, I think is still still doing the same, but now we have the tools and technology to assess. And with AI, now we're starting to have tools that are actually doing this in an autonomous way and a simultaneous way that you don't even need a manager right now to go assess their team. You can actually use tools and technology. And the AE, by the way, can self-coach.
Yep.
And there's not only tools like Gong, but there's other great tools out there. We actually have an internal customer of Glean. We use Glean here at Databricks, but it's an internal search engine. And we can see all these great rich analytics. But one of the things is that we can actually have a bot that is internal using Glean and Databricks, where if AE asks a question, there's no, it's actually AI is answering that. So we're doing some really, really cool things. So I think, but general assessment is that, we're still trying to go back to my first point, assessing the competency, helping that AE develop and get better from a learning path or learning journey and measure that. And then ultimately the company has success because the AEs are developing. And ultimately the most important is that our customers get service better.
Yeah, I love it. Maybe I think I'd love to hear, you have such a rich journey that you've been through, and you've taken organizations through this journey of becoming more of a learning culture. Can you maybe highlight again, whether it's Tableau or Gong or whichever sort of stop along the way, where they started and kind of where you took them and how you took them to become transforming the culture to that of a learning culture?
Yeah, a couple quick comments, real time. This is not much prep, so I'll just go back to real time thinking here. First, Tableau. I mean, I think, and Dan Miller gets a lot of credit to this. One of the things that I early on in my enablement career was mistake number one, and if people heard me speak, I usually share this. We did too much enablement to rep versus enablement to manager and manager to rep. And so this idea that one, and in fact, even building the content with other AEs, so build with the people for the people. So a lot of content sometimes was built in a vacuum or potentially with product marketing and enablement, but we didn't actually, get sellers or leaders to look at it. So mistake number two. So one, train the leaders in advance, make sure that they see the content, they can model the right behavior. One of the early on lessons learned was that if you do enablement to rep, but then the manager doesn't use the new messaging, doesn't reinforce the right behavior, then all that enablement was wasted. So maybe lesson number three. But I remember Dan Miller specifically, we started going heavily into training the managers. And I'll never forget, we actually brought all the managers in advance to kick off. We're sitting with, I think, 400 or 500 frontline managers in a room. And him and I were emceeing it, and we both looked at each other and we said, this room is going to produce, $2 billion in revenue this year. Right? We knew that the only way success or failure was through these leaders. And so that's kind of a transformation that we knew how important that is. And I think that's, wherever company you're at, it seems simple, but yet it's something that I think a lot of times organizations don't slow down enough. And by the way, a lot of times to do that, managers aren't on board. They don't know why we're doing it. They don't think the content's spot on. They don't think it's the right time. And not to mention if the content wasn't built with account executives. Yep. So I'm a big fan of piloting. I'm a big fan of Databricks does a really good job. They have a program called the SWAT team. I get no credit for this. The team did this before I got here, but they formed this SWAT team of actual account executives and leaders where they know, hey, we need your help to look at this content. We need your help to do this boot camp session. And it's actually formalized. We send them swag. They're part of it. They're proud to be on it. So I think like build with the people for the people, but that's one. Tableau. One more recently is something that's actually a little bit different perspective. I have the honor here in Seattle to be on the advisory board of the University of Washington's Business School Foster School Business. Been on the advisory board for 2 years, and they have a program called the Sales Program. So University of Washington Foster School Business, I think only one of 197 programs in the U.S. that actually you can get a minor in sales. And it's so cool. So I get a chance to, periodically go into the classroom and spend time with graduating seniors about what's the workforce going to be looking like. And not only are they, what's interesting, competing against people that are already in the marketplace, but they're also competing against AI, meaning, you know, uh, traditional roles that potentially they would have applied for, but now companies are investing into, AI and so on. So this competency development, this learning journey philosophy is something I really have been promoting to them, because it's going to be something that they've got to get out into the marketplace. They not only articulate their skills of just getting into the career, but how do you separate yourself? So one of the things I kept saying to them is, hey, go get certified. We have free e-learning, a generative AI course that Databricks offers. NVIDIA, Google, others do the same. But like, not only embrace AI, but go farther than that. Go get certified in these technologies now, so that when you get out to the marketplace, you can differentiate yourself. So those are just two examples of, it doesn't matter if you're seasoned in your career as an account executive, or you're just getting ready to graduate, or you're like myself. I'm still getting certified. I got to still keep up to speed on all the trends and model it. But those are just real time
Yeah.
couple thoughts.
I'm going to go back to your first one, the Tableau one, where you're sitting in the room with all those managers, there's hundreds of managers, and you're like, this is how we're going to do it. And you made the very smart point of, some of them are a little skeptical sometimes. They're not fully on board with what you're doing. And I think you're spot on in saying they are the linchpin to doing anything from an enablement perspective. How have you in the past overcome that resistance? The like, yeah, I'll check the box for my team and skip it. Like, how have you gotten them to come along, because they're so important?
I you know, I hope I mean, I'm just reflecting a little bit. I hope I have. I'm a big fan of serving. I think when you can make sure when you meet with your leaders, or you have the mentality, and I'm surely thankful for this, the servant mentality, whether it's, I have found the only way to truly be successful is to serve. Um, and so when I was a sales leader, I realized the harder I was trying to get my team to perform, the worse they were doing. So I flipped my mentality, mostly by mistakes, which is okay. My job is I work for them. I serve that team, and that transitioned really well into tech when I got to Tableau, and I realized, hey, my team, the enablement team, our client is the internal team. They are our customer. And when you have that mindset, you don't have skepticism on, they're not listening, or they don't think enablement is important, or in fact it's a little bit of a reverse mentality. It's like, they are our client, and we're going to do everything that we can to help them be successful, whether it's building out world-class boot camps, running great sales kickoffs, driving competencies. And I think when you help people learn, and you have a path for them to learn, it's actually quite endearing. And so I think about, over the time, whether it's, Tableau, Salesforce, Gong, Databricks, I try to showcase this mentality that we're here to serve, we're here to help. So that buy-in, or that check the box, I hope becomes less, because they know we respect them, and their time's valuable. And so when we create an e-learning, like the Databricks team here gets a lot of credit for this too. I mean, the e-learnings, or the training that we've built here, I mean, it is world class. We're some of the most seasoned, and we're a big sentiment data factory. We want to see all the sentiment, good or bad. We're seeing account executives or leaders calling out, like, this was really well done, and I'm excited to have my team go through it. So that respect, I think, has also helped. If we have an issue, I mean, a lot of times I'll try to just go leader to leader to them, but I also believe the power of buy-in with your executives, and I'm surely not an expert at it, but I feel like if we can craft something where we're here to serve.
Yeah.
You've heard me mention this a few times, but it's still true. McKinsey Consulting says 70% of large transformational strategic initiatives fail. So in other words, companies launch messaging, they launch new product. Most companies launch something pretty well, but the true challenge is post-training, post-launch. Did you actually change behavior? Did you actually really make sure that AE or lead or partner, for that matter, learned that competency? Can you measure it? I'm a huge fan of measurement, showcasing effectiveness or ineffectiveness. That also goes well with managers, where we can say, hey, here's the data to you and your team. It's
Yeah.
going well, here's the data, or it's not going well, here's the data. All of those, I think, have, ultimately helped. And then, to then showcase that learning journey, go back to point one, defining the strategic initiatives, making sure that we have a plan that work through managers first, make sure they understand why we're doing it, get them to model, then have that really strong learning path where you can measure. And then you look back 6 months, 3 months, a year, and feel like you got a little bit better. That usually has helped us, serve well and be successful, and, honored to be in the craft to do that and
I
here in
love it.
enablement.
And I want to go back to something I mentioned at the outset of this call, the idea of, whether a culture is accommodating to enablement initiatives and learning in general can make or break a person sometimes. And so any tips for a person when interviewing to to spot that, to be able to say, like, this is a friendly audience for enablement activities, or this is a whole bunch of skeptics? And so I take your point about serving in that mentality, but how can you observe before you
Sure.
join, friend or foe, challenging or not challenging?
Yeah, geez, great question. So we'll shift a little bit to interview, and I'll just, share some of my own experience. So one of the things that Tableau did really, really well is they had everyone demo the product before you get there. You actually had to every single person, no matter what role, had to demo the product. And Tableau software, you could do that. You can actually today download it for free. Students get it for free, and so on. So I remember heavily studying 6, 7, 8 weekends. Uh, all about Tableau, because I actually had to demo it. And, Shirley at that time wasn't in the space, and Shirley did understand Tableau. So I learned a tremendous amount. I think a lot of times now you can see what companies, whether it's LinkedIn or other posts around their culture within a company. But a lot of these companies that you're interviewing for, they'll either have a product, their own product, or their own certification, or their own way to get educated. Um, so one of the things that I was, really proud of, when I was interviewing here at Databricks, is to go get certified on their product, their technical product. So I got certified on their Lakehouse fundamentals and their generative AI, which is free and out to customers and partners. But I mean, it was hard, and I will tell you, I mean, that's more me. My son heard me, pounding my desk and cussing him a few times, because I just, I had to learn. It was tough. And I think, the more you can show, not a tactic that you're trying to get certified or try to get educated, because it's a tactic to get the job.
Yeah.
I think it's, you generally are interested. I actually even said, like, whether I get this job or not, I think I could serve and do a good job. But if I'm not the right choice for Databricks, no problem. But I was generally interested in understanding the lake house and understanding that this new way of showcasing data and AI, and surely, generative AI. And so I was just quite fascinated. And because of that, you can get that passion and you can get educated. And I also saw how hard it was. It's quite complex. And I think that shows authentic in an interview, when you've done the, is the juice worth the squeeze, or whatever analogy you want. But if it's an interviewing, it can be product based, it could be product research. Also, because I was blessed, I knew Databricks for a long time. I interviewed people that I knew that had worked here, that had left, and I know that's pretty standard. But I mean, I probably interviewed 30 or 40 people outside of the core interview people that I had, just because I actually wanted to know, am I a good fit? Can I serve well here? I think sometimes people take the tactic of, I want to get this job no matter what. I was the reverse. I felt like, okay, I hope I can get an offer, but more importantly, I wanted to be convicted that I could do a good job and serve. So I did my own research, and I think that gave a lot of conviction. So I'm a big fan. I did the same at Tableau, did the same at Gong, where I spent a lot of time getting educated on the product, the platform, the community, and then I put work into it, where many people maybe, don't take the time to get. I mean, it probably took me, multiple hours of Tableau, Gong, and surely 10x that for Databricks to get certified. Um, but I was really thankful for it, and then I think it shows really well up in an interview, right? And it's authentic. And if you don't get the role, you did everything you possibly could. You go on to something else.
and it's probably not meant to be.
Yeah.
This has been great. I love to summarize this, sort of any big sort of leave behinds for people in terms of learning cultures that you want them really to run away with.
You bet. Well, first, I think it's, it's super important to model it. I absolutely think, leading yourself, whether you're an individual contributor or a leader, to be able to model, how are you learning? One of my taglines I've said, keep learning, keep serving. So first start there. I think, defining a learning path, no matter what organization you're in, if it's just for you, and understanding what that will take to develop a certain competency over 3, 6, 9 months. And then making sure that if you're a leader or manager, that you're doing the same thing, you're modeling that and defining that competency, and then you can train and teach your team is really powerful. And then of course, I'm a big fan of service minded or service mentality. And so anytime you can focus on what you could do to help others, I think makes a huge difference, whether it's in work or it's in obviously personal life, makes a big difference. And I've been blessed. What an honor to be at some of the great companies: Tableau, Salesforce, Gong, Databricks, Southwestern for 18 years as a sales leader. And myself and team, it's been honor to be in the enablement craft to be able to help define this learning path and competency development.
I love it, and it's been so great to hear this. And as much as you're a student, a learner, you're also a great teacher. So thank you for
You bet.
sharing. I could do this and expand this conversation for 2 hours easily and go super deep on all the topics, but I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing this with the community, and I really appreciate it.
You bet. You bet.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Okay. Bye.